Bonnie copied Andy several times, not only by replacing the toy's former owner's name with her own, but even through the way she looked at them. 16 years after Toy Story 3, it seems like Andy's presence is still alive in the soul of the franchise. Stop and look at these two images. They're both holding the toys in the same pose and, most importantly, with the exact same look on their faces. Even Bonnie's behavior with the toys is similar. The more you look, the more it seems like Toy Story told the same story twice, and we're going to show you how. Are you ready? Because another amazing Cinewave is starting now. Name. Bonnie literally took Andy's place on Woody. Look closely at the bottom of his boot. Ever since the first movie, there has been a name written there. Andy. It wasn't just some random signature. That name showed that Woody belonged to Andy and carried a part of his childhood everywhere he went. But after Andy gives his toys to Bonnie, something impossible to ignore happens. Her name appears in the exact same place. She didn't write Bonnie on his hat, his shirt, or some other part of the toy. Her name was placed directly over the spot that represented Andy. And let's remember that in Toy Story 5, Jessie showed that Emily, her first owner, had also written on the doll, but inside the stitching of her boot. In other words, Emily had her own personality, but Bonnie, she copied Andy. Woody got a new owner, and at the same time, the story chose a new child to take Andy's role. And this switch of names was only the beginning, because Bonnie also recreated one of Woody's former owner's most famous games, the way she played. Bonnie even copied the way Andy played. In Toy Story 4, we see a scene of Andy in the past running with his arms completely spread out while holding Woody, transforming the space around him into part of his adventure. Later, Bonnie makes the exact same gesture, and we're going to show you the scene. She runs with her arms stretched out, completely lost in the game, as if she were traveling through a world that only exists inside her imagination. When the two scenes are placed side by side, the movement seems to repeat itself. And of course, Andy was the one who taught Bonnie how to play with his toys at the end of the third movie, so it makes sense. But two different children at different points in time, bringing their imaginations to life in the same way, shows just how much Bonnie was inspired by Andy. This detail stands out even more because, even though Andy played with Bonnie during the emotional ending of Toy Story 3, she didn't have to copy his movements. It's almost as if she knew the correct way to play with those toys. First, Andy's name was replaced by hers on the bottom of Woody's boot. Now, she even runs the same way he did. And it becomes even more interesting when we realize that Bonnie fell in love with Woody just like Andy did. At the end of Toy Story 3, she even repeats the cowboy's famous line, "There's a snake in my boot." Bonnie didn't just inherit the old toys. Without realizing it, she may have recreated the way Andy brought them to life. And the next topic goes even further, because they both left their own unique mark on a toy. A life of its own. Andy and Bonnie both made a toy become one of a kind. The boy didn't build Woody from scratch, but he left a mark on him that no other Woody would ever have. He didn't just write his own name on the bottom of Woody's boot. No, it was much more than that. He showed Woody what he was supposed to be, a loyal hero. From that moment on, the toy stopped being just some ordinary cowboy. He became Andy's Woody, the toy who would do anything for his kid. Bonnie did something similar, but in an even more powerful way. At school, she put together a spork, modeling clay, pipe cleaners, and other materials until she created her favorite toy, Forky. An object that was supposed to be thrown in the trash became the most important toy in her life. When Forky disappears, Woody is the one who does everything he can to bring him back, because he knows that a toy should always return to its kid. Bonnie couldn't be happy without him, and that was the mark Andy had left on the toys, the mark that saved Forky from ending up in the trash. It was almost as if what started with Andy was completed through Bonnie's creation of Forky, but they both experienced the same problem, watching a new toy steal all the attention, abandonment. Bonnie also replaced Woody, just like Andy did. When Woody belonged to the boy, he was his favorite toy. He slept in his bed, led all the adventures, and was certain that he would always be the most important one, until Buzz Lightyear arrived. The new toy captured all of Andy's attention, and Woody realized that he might no longer be the center of that world. Years later, that same feeling returned with Bonnie. When she created Forky, the new toy became her biggest concern. Bonnie wanted Forky to stay close to her at all times, while Woody wasn't always chosen for playtime. Just look at the first few scenes of the fourth movie and you'll have all the proof you need. But there is one important difference. With Buzz, Woody tried to get rid of the threat that was about to take his place. With Forky, he did the opposite. He risked everything to protect him and bring him back to Bonnie. The situation of replacing the leader happened again, but Woody was no longer the same. The first time, he was afraid of being replaced. The second time, he understood that taking care of his kid also meant accepting that another toy might be more important. And that wasn't the only time Bonnie placed the characters in new roles. Would you like to have a role in the Toy Story universe? Comment the hashtag toy so we can get to know you. Sheriff. Bonnie replaced Woody as the sheriff. In Andy's games, none of the characters had to remain what they originally were. The toys could become heroes, villains, prisoners, or anything else his imagination created. Bonnie plays by the same rule. In Toy Story 4, she takes Woody's sheriff badge and puts it on Jessie while Woody is left inside the closet. Take a look at this scene! Suddenly, the cowboy who had always been presented as the sheriff no longer has that role. Now Jessie is the sheriff of the adventure. To Bonnie, that badge doesn't necessarily belong to Woody. He is simply one part of the story she is creating at that moment. That is exactly how Andy created his games. He gave the toys new roles and transformed the world around them. But for Woody, that change meant much more. He wasn't just losing a piece of clothing, he was watching another character take over the mission that had always been part of his identity. And here's something interesting. Jessie became the leader of the toys after that. Andy had also created that rule. The favorite toy was the leader. Bonnie repeated Andy's freedom and creativity while playing, and without realizing it, she also changed the way the toys would organize themselves forever. Even the biggest adventures created by the two of them seemed to follow the same path. The games. Bonnie imagined adventures the same way Andy did. Ever since the first movie, Andy never played in a simple way. To him, his bedroom could become an entire city, and any toy could take on a completely different role. In one of his most memorable games, Woody faces Mr. Potato Head during a huge robbery. Andy creates danger, a chase, characters, and even a story with a beginning, middle, and end. Bonnie shows that same energy. When she starts playing, the toys are no longer just scattered around the room. They become part of a world invented by her. Just look at the first imaginary scene in Toy Story 5, which we're going to show you, where a wedding is taking place, and then, out of nowhere, the dinosaur is poisoned and Buzz gives him mouth-to-mouth resuscitation. Each character is given a mission, a new role, and a place within the adventure. The stories aren't the same. Andy enjoyed epic battles, while Bonnie likes stories about tragic weddings with mysterious villains. But the way they use their imaginations is repeated, and this similarity becomes even stronger when we realize that they both changed over time and started distancing themselves from the toys. Growing apart. Both Andy and Bonnie reached the same point where they started distancing themselves from their favorite toys. For years, the toys were at the center of Andy's adventures, but as he grew older, other things began taking up that space, like responsibilities and college. When he had to leave, playing was no longer part of his daily routine. Woody and the others continued carrying all those memories, while Andy needed to move on to a new stage of his life. Now, Bonnie seems to be heading in the same direction. In Toy Story 5, she still loves her toys, but new distractions like Lily Pad have stolen her attention, along with things like ballet classes and her new friends. Little by little, what once filled her entire world is at risk of becoming less important. It's the same change happening to two children from different generations. And here's something funny. Andy pushed Woody aside for a toy with newer technology, Buzz, while all the toys were pushed aside by Bonnie because of an electronic device, Lily Pad. The idea is the same, and we're going to talk about that again later, but there's another important point. Andy didn't abandon the toys all at once. He simply grew up until his life began pulling him away from them. Bonnie may be experiencing the beginning of that exact same process. The toys remain the same, waiting for their next adventure, but in Bonnie's case, this new distraction may be much harder to fight. Technology. Bonnie found something powerful enough to pull her away from all the toys. With Andy, time was responsible for that change. He grew up, started thinking about college, and left his old adventures behind, and that is completely normal in every child's life. With Bonnie, the danger appears in a different way. In Toy Story 5, technology begins directly competing for her attention. A screen can offer games, images, and entire worlds without Bonnie ever having to pick up a single toy, and that makes the repetition even stronger. Just as Andy was pulled toward a new stage of his life, Bonnie also begins looking at something that exists outside her old games. The difference is that Andy needed years to grow apart from his toys. With Bonnie, that change happened with just one tap on Lily Pad's screen. Jessie herself said that electronic devices are making children grow up too quickly. Andy's story and the story of every child is happening again, but this time much faster. And there is one scene that may connect these two characters once and for all. Just like there is a channel that brings you the best videos every single day, There's a new video here every day, so subscribe and hit the bell to stay up to date. Forgotten. Woody ended up being forgotten by both of them. When Andy grew up, his toys spent more and more time stored inside a chest. We're going to show you the scene, and the possibility of being sent to the attic showed that they no longer had a place in Andy's life. Something very similar happens with Bonnie. Woody is left inside the closet. He thought he would become part of another child's childhood, but that isn't what happened. With Bonnie, Woody also had to follow a different path. Andy wasn't going to abandon him, but Woody chose to leave, and with Bonnie, he also went away. Just look at the ending of Toy Story 4. There are so many similarities between Bonnie and Andy, aren't there? But the final one is even stronger. The same pose. Andy and Bonnie repeated the same emotional goodbye. In Toy Story 3, Andy holds Woody close to his chest before giving him away. His eyes are lowered and his face looks serious and a little sad because he realizes just how much he loves that toy. Now, in the fifth movie, look at Bonnie. The way she looks at Jessie is exactly the same. She realizes how much that doll means to her, but she also knows that a new stage of her life is coming. These two scenes are extremely similar and show the same emotion they both experienced with those toys. Andy was saying goodbye to his childhood, while Bonnie was entering her teenage years. And in the end, maybe Bonnie was never that different from Andy. Maybe Toy Story was simply showing us the same story the entire time. Just like we'll always bring you that same level of fun in the best videos on the internet. If you like this video, there are 2 more ready on the screen. Just click and keep watching with us. Thanks, and see you soon.